Global happenings today. We communicate. We analyze global news. Stay tuned.
Hello beautiful people, welcome back to our channel. It's no longer news that Fubara and the Rivers State lawmakers are back in Rivers State. The democratic structure has been restored. But apparently it's not sitting well with most persons. Of course, many people have called out Mr. President. They are still calling, but this time around, something unique is playing out. Of course, we check our playlist, get to see what Ibasete is saying concerning Martin Emery-led assembly, Rivers State-led assembly. Now, let's find out exactly what is going on just some few minutes ago. Well, before we go into the news proper, can you subscribe to our channel? Now, according to actor and politician Kenneth Okonkwo, who have accused the president, Bola Tinubu, of instigating the political crisis in Rivers State, which culminated in the suspension of Governor Siminalayi Fubara, his deputy, Ngozi Odo, and state lawmakers for 6 months. Now, Okonkwo made the allegation, and you could record also that Fubara assumed office on Friday after months of suspension, during which Vice Admiral Bokete Ibas retired, served as the sole administrator. Now, when asked about Fubara's conduct since his reinstatement and speculations that the governor may have accepted conditions that could prevent him from seeking a second-term bid, Okonkwo said that, well, the governor has said before now that he can do anything for peace. So this is not the first time he's saying it. He's only simply reiterating it. And the governor, even after the Supreme Court judgment, still said the same thing. He will abide by every word, every decision of the Supreme Court, and he started immediately abiding by it. Why the declaration of state of emergency in the first place? He questioned the jurisdiction or justification for the emergency rule, noting that there was no breakdown of law and order in Rivers State. And because there was no crisis in the vast state, what you had was a political lockdown. The Constitution made it clear that the breakdown of law and order that would require a state of emergency is such that requires extraordinary measure in order to restore peace and security. What was it in Rivers State that required extraordinary measure? 500 persons were roasted in Benue State. The president did not think there was need for extraordinary measure. Boko Haram had been liquidating our officers and citizens of Nigeria. The president did not think there was a need for extraordinary measure. More than 500 persons go through natural disaster in Niger State. The president did not think there was any need for extraordinary measure. And in Rivers State, where there was no crisis, there was no political riot, there was nothing, and then you declare state of emergency. This is what is more annoying about it, that the president is using Supreme Court judgment to even talk about state of emergency. Now, that is bewitchment. They don't ask him, okay, so he described all of this, that's Kenneth Okonkwo describing all of this as a political manipulation. He said that this is bewitchment. APC has upgraded from deceiving people through lies to bewitching people through enchantment. Now, let me say it this way. Supreme Court judgment is meant to resolve disputes. And Supreme Court judgment has resolved the dispute by declaring the civil rights and obligation of the governor and the House of Assembly members. And the governor and every party said they will abide by it. So how can you use the same Supreme Court judgment to initiate crisis in Rivers State? It was President Tinubu that initiated the crisis. There was none. There was peace. How many people were brought down? How many people were maimed? I mean, I understand that. Let me quote him word for word. He said, and I'll quote, he said, it's important to note that having read carefully the statement of the president, I found no substance in it. The president doubled down in his claim that he declares a state of emergency on the 18th of March 2025 because there was total paralysis of governance in Rivers State, which had led to the governor of Rivers State and the House of Assembly being unable to work together. Critical economic assets of the state, including oil pipelines, were vandalized. When the president visited Benue State to console the Benue people over the massacre of more than 500 persons in Benue, he asked the Inspector General of Police, how come this number of persons were brought down and you have not made a single arrest? I want to see some arrests, he demanded. My question to Mr. President is, sir, how come you took over the government of Rivers State for 6 months and there was no single arrest of any person who was involved in vandalizing oil and pipelines and critical economic assets of the state? At least, the IGP of police belatedly made some arrests some days later. But till date, after 6 months of Tinubu's emergency rule, there is no arrest made that could be traceable to any vandalism of Rivers State assets under Fubara's watch or by Fubara's people. The problem in Rivers State was a political logjam, not a breakdown of law and order. And according to the Constitution of Court of South Korea, political logjams are settled politically, not by removing elected representatives of the people through any other means whatsoever. Wow, this is quite strong. This is coming from Kenneth, and he's asking the president one simple question. How come there has been no arrest of any kind if he said there was vandalism? And he's literally putting the heap of the whole blame of all the crises that went down in Rivers State on Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that he initiated it. There was no problem or just a political issue, and they called it a political logjam. My colleague is in the house. What's your take?
Well, I think that one thing, unfortunately, we must accept is the fact that the president has a permitted high-handedness that, unfortunately, even the legislature cannot control. And the docility of Nigerians have also allowed it that way. The whole thing is permitted. That's why we see it play out the way it did. Because if you are taking a swift move towards controlling anything, you must bring out empirical facts, bring out provable evidence that this is the reason I took this decision, and you guys can see what I have done thus far. But unfortunately, the young man went in there and ended up setting up a structure which, as a sole administrator, even if he's permitted to be in that place, his own duty was to go in there and restore peace if there was no peace in that state. You understand? That was just what sole administrator would have done. But he went in there. We saw him appointing people into governing council of academic institutions. We saw him setting up, sending people packing. I mean, he did things that was overboard. But just like the man have gone ahead to tell Nigerians, I was only responsible to Mr. President. So possibly, in quote, what he means, if we must interpret it, he was doing what the president told him to do. You understand? So for now, what we saw, the position of the likes of Kenneth Okonkwo, I would say, is absolutely correct. But at the same time, what are we going to do about it? That's the question. Because as much as the legislature is now submissive to the executive, that's the legislature, NAS, both house of the Green Chamber and the Red Chamber, is now submissive to the president. There's absolutely nothing we can do. And judiciary ended up as an in-law now to the executive. It's messing up the whole thing. So Nigerians will just, by the side, keep panting. I could still recall in one of our news that was published, someone brought up an issue on the net, and he said that he's staying at Calgary, and a Palestinian who ended up driving him asked him some question about Nigeria, and when he talked about the issue of corruption, he said, well, the people have the power to remove the president after he finishes. He said that even election, the people don't even have a say over. The man said, yes, there is corruption in their own Pakistan, but it's not like this. So we've gone to the extreme. We're just hopeful that one day divinity will come to rescue us, or possibly Nigerians will wake up from our long sleep and we'll rescue the country by ourselves. But I'm hopeful that some of the move, like from the likes of Osita Chidoke, where he's trying to make sure that even the likes of the glitches in INEC is fully checkmate, so that at the end of the day, Nigerians will be able to protect their vote and be the one to decide those who rule them. I'm hopeful that as he's rolling out that project, it will come out successful at the end of the day.
All right, that's going to wrap it up.